Today, for our second episode of the Soulpreneur interview series, I am welcoming Katherine Luther, founder of the Luther Method Life Coaching. And I'm really excited about, I really want to learn about what it is that you are doing, what's this method of yours. And I'm looking forward to our conversation. So, Katherine, could you tell us a bit more about yourself? So, what is it exactly that you do? And also, what kind of people do you work with? Is it only women or men, women, and so on? So,
Yeah,
can you introduce yourself?
absolutely. So, as you already said, yeah, my name is Katherine Luther. I founded Luther Method Life Coaching at the beginning of this year in February. I launched my business. Um, and it is designed to help people, more so women, but I could also help couples. I just haven't gotten that far yet. Work through identity shifts. And what I mean by that is when we have big life events, I'm going to use myself, I'm also a new mom. When we have big life shifts, life events, we have an identity shift. So we go from being not a mom to a mom. And that means that we have stuff that we lost. So I lost my free time, I lost my ability to sleep in, you know, different things like that. But I gained a baby girl and a soul to nurture and take care of, and all these different things. So my identity changed, but I process through what that means, what that looks like. I have to mourn and grieve the things that I lost that I liked. And so in Luther Method, that's what I help people do, is I help people process through an identity shift. I help people process through big life events that affected them in a healthy way and choose what they want the new identity to look like, choose what they want this new title to mean for them and their everyday lives. So that's kind of the breakdown of what my business does. And like I said, I'm a new mom. I also work part-time as an emergency medical technician in one of the largest medical companies in Colorado, which is where I'm based in Denver, Colorado. So yeah, that's kind of me in a little bit of a nutshell.
Okay. Yes, exactly. So, you mentioned big life events like the birth of your first child, obviously. In the category of big life events, is divorce also one thing, and potentially the loss of a loved one as well? All that
Yeah,
fitting into your category of big life events?
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Um,
Because it's easy to,
Go ahead.
it feels easier to see as a new mom.
Hmm.
I completely agree with what you lose freedom, your free time, and so on, and what you gain. But when it's, for instance, the loss of a marriage, supposed to see what are the positives coming out of it, right?
Hmm. Yeah,
So you
yeah,
help people through events that are deemed positive or also negative. Doesn't matter what kind of life events, right?
yeah, yeah. No, exactly. I just use myself as an example, but honestly, anything. I've kind of worked with people who moved across the United States. They went from one state and they moved to a different state, and that can even be a huge shift. That's a huge life event, moving from one place. Switching jobs, having a big career change can be a big shift and affect your life in a lot of different ways. And like you said, divorce, marriage, loss of a loved one. Um, there's just so honestly, it could be almost anything that you feel changes who you are, or affects who you are and how you perceive yourself and how others perceive yourself, could be considered an identity shift and needs to be processed, you know so yeah, all of the above.
Yeah,
Anything that somebody else, I guess, would title as a life event
yeah.
is going to affect them.
Okay, yeah, no, it's very interesting. And so you said you mentioned you work mainly with women. But you could also work with couples because obviously couples also go through big life events
Yeah.
one way or another. So, but for now, mostly you're working with women.
Hmm.
So, so those women who come to you for help, how are they feeling when they come, or what's their issue? Because you summarize it very well when you talk about identity shift, but how how do they talk about it, or how do they feel when they come to you? What's their problem, or how do they voice their issue, their
Yeah.
problem to you?
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. So normally when we're
Okay,
kind of
yeah,
in
there's a lag in between you and me. I mean,
there
we are
is.
at two different ends.
Yes. Did you finish asking your question? I'm sorry. Oh,
Yes, you can go. Yes,
okay.
sorry.
Okay. Sorry.
Go ahead.
um so yeah, when people haven't, I guess, labeled, for lack of a better word, kind of what they're going through this life event, because sometimes they happen and we don't even really acknowledge that they've happened. The way they're going to be feeling is kind of lost. They're not going to feel like they really have a good direction for where they're wanting to go. They're going to have a little bit of a lack of purpose, a lack of peace. They're going to be kind of confused about where they fit. They're going to be like, well, I have this new piece of who I am, but where do I fit? How is this supposed to look? So that's kind of, they're just going to kind of feel unrest. They're going to feel kind of awkward. They're going to feel kind of like they're not sure
Yeah.
what, it's kind of like it'd be kind of like trying to try on a that you've never tried on before. It's like, where does this arm go? Is this the head hole? Is this where I zip it up? That's kind of how they're going to feel.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, I can definitely see that happening. Yeah. Okay. Great. So I got a bit more info on what it is that you do and with who you're doing it. So, plus, I mean, Catherine, you're young, so that you are already in this type of job and profession, that you are already being a coach, because most of the time we become a coach after having long, well, of medium-sized career, but not really from the start of being an adult. And
Yeah.
so, I guess I'm just curious, what brought you to so at such an early age?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to dive real deep into my story here. Um, so I grew up in a Christian Baptist home. I was homeschooled. I am the youngest of seven, and pretty normal childhood. There's some stuff that you're like, that wasn't the greatest, but then there's some great, amazing stuff. So overall, pretty happy with my childhood. I did experience a childhood trauma when I was around 10 years old, and that kind of handicapped my ability to grow my emotional intelligence about myself, to process through emotions in a healthy way, and to just know where I was on that emotional chart. So when I was a young adult, I've always been really driven. I've always been very focused on my goals. I got my emergency medical technician certification when I was rather young, and I started working at the hospital company that I work for now, UC Health, when I was 19, which is kind of on the young side, and have been doing that ever since. I've been doing that for almost 6 years. Uh, and during that phase, I met my now ex and jumped into a relationship that wasn't good. It wasn't healthy. It was fueled by a lot of toxic behaviors, a lot of codependency, and everything. Ended up marrying him, and come to find out he was extremely abusive, emotionally and physically. And I had this moment where I was at work and I was sitting on a computer researching how to live with an abusive person, researching techniques for safety and to try and break the cycle and stuff. And it was in that moment that I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm I'm married to an abuser. Like, that is my identity. That is who I am, is the wife of an abuser. And that aha moment gave me so much peace and it gave me control, because in that moment I realized, like, how do I want this to look? Like, how do I want this identity to fit me? And how do I want to move forward, knowing that this is a part of my life, acknowledging, claiming that this is a part of my life. And from that moment, everything started to change in my relationship. I started to be able to see the things that I didn't like, that I'm like, no, I don't want this to be a part of my story. I don't want this to be a part of my identity. So I could change it. I could actively participate and be like, no, we're not doing this. So fast forward about a year from there, and I was able to get out of that relationship after a lot more identity shifts that were I didn't sign up for, but they were forced upon me. So after a lot more stuff happened, that's when I got out of that relationship. And by God's grace, you know, it was one of the best things that I needed to do. It was a hard thing. For anybody who gets out of an abusive relationship can tell you it is one of the hardest things you'll ever do. And then I went through a domino effect of a lot of identity shifts. So I got out of that relationship. I met an amazing individual named Mario, and we started a relationship. I got divorced. Mario and I got really serious about our relationship. We got pregnant, we got married, and then we had a baby. And we did that all in less than a year of time during COVID, during the pandemic lockdown. So, because of all those life events, I feel like I can speak really well to identities and life events and how to process them and how to own them and how to make them your own and how to say, this is what I want to look like. This is the kind of wife I want to be. This is the kind of mom I want to be. You know, this is the kind of divorced person I want to be, because I went through them all just kind of at a really accelerated rate. So even though I'm young, I feel like I have an old soul, because I feel like I've lived a lot of life events that people don't do until later on in life, if that makes sense.
Yes. Oh, it completely makes sense. And I mentioned was I'm the wife of an abuser, and then it makes you realize that this is something that you don't want. So
Mm-hmm.
I think talking about identity is really a big part of it, and it makes it so clear that you are in something that's really not what you want, and what do you want, who do you want to be instead.
Yeah.
Because we often talk about this thing, you know, the be, do, have, and that most people they start with the I'll have this when I will be rich or older or whatever, then I'll have the things that I want to have, and I'll do the things I want to do. And we have it all wrong, because it always starts with who do we want to be. So that's why I agree with that, obviously. Who do we want to be? And that completely fits what you're talking, how you're talking about your coaching. That it's that succession of the people, of the persons that you are, and then you go through another shift, and then you are somebody else, and then you're somebody else again. And yeah, you happen to have at a young age to have had quite those shifts indeed. So I agree, and you say it makes me want to being an old soul, because I had all those experiences already and all those shifts. And I suppose that's why you know help others go the same, or at least a lot of identity shifts as well.
Mhm.
Yeah, yeah. Okay, well, and yeah, I had goosebumps when you were talking about, you know, all the things that happened to you and that shaped you into who you are now, and that you are now able to help others with that. So
Yeah.
yeah, great. So let's go back to your clients.
Mm.
So what's the how could you describe the transformation that they go through? You know, so I asked you how they feel when they come to you. So you said they were lost, confused. They knew something was off, but they didn't exactly know how to process it. So, so what's the transformation, and how do they get out on the other side of the, you know, the process that they go through with you, with your coaching?
Yeah.
How are they transformed?
Yes. Absolutely. So, like I said in my story, I had that big aha moment where I named my identity. And that gave me so much power. And so, what I really like to do with my clients is really have them like naming, like out loud, like, what is this identity? You know, and just by naming it, then that starts this process. Um, and it starts the process of being able to process through, okay, so this is your new identity. What is the name of your old identity? What is the name of the identity you lost? Because then we can start to process through, mourn, and grieve the things you don't have anymore, which is a really, really, really critical process. Because when we don't mourn and we don't grieve the things that we don't have anymore, it kind of eats away at us. You know, it's kind of like that itch that you can't get to and stuff. There's kind of like, I don't know why something's bothering me, but it is. But when we mourn it and we process through it, we're able to let it go, and we're able to lay it to rest, and we're able to just kind of let our heart and our soul and our mind process through, okay, that is over. That is done, and I'm going to be okay. Like, I'm okay with the fact that I don't get to participate in that identity anymore. So that's what happens when we mourn and grieve it. And so that's a wonderful shift. It's a hard shift. It can be really difficult, but it's a wonderful part of the process. And then after we've done those two things, then we move on to figuring out what we want the new identity to look like. So coming back to myself, what kind of a mom do I want to be? What kind of new wife do I want to be? You know, and just really working through that process and really looking through how I want that identity to look on me. And when I do that, it gives me the ability to step into it with peace and with purpose. And I love that for my clients. And when you go through this whole process, it really gives you, and it really helps you to be able to put that garment on and be like, yes, it fits, and I look good, and I like how I feel. It doesn't feel awkward anymore. So that's really the transformation that my clients go through when they're with me, kind of from the awkward feeling to, unfortunately, with anything, whenever we grow, it's always a little uncomfortable. So there are those uncomfortable grieving, mourning processes, but it brings so much calm, and it really helps. It closes that door to bitterness and resentment, which is what we want, because those just eat away at our soul. So,
Right. So they go from lost and confused to feeling at peace and on purpose. And because they've chosen this one garment, as you said, and it fits. So, and they go out feeling, yeah, so this is who I am. They can name it and they can claim it as well.
yeah,
So,
yeah.
generally, I don't know if there's a generally, but how long does it take somebody to go through those shifts and, you know, to go through the process? Is it like 3 months, 6 months? How, or does it really vary by person?
Yeah, so it depends on how much work we have to do. So honestly, if someone's really, 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 really struggling, sometimes we have to go back a long ways to like identities in their childhood that they didn't even process. And so that can be kind of hard and can take a little bit of time. Um, and sometimes it's just a new life event. And also, if someone wants to be super proactive, and they want to work on an identity they're going to have. So, say a person who's engaged and or a lady who's pregnant is going to have a baby, or someone who knows they're going to move across, the United States or even switch countries and stuff. They could start working with me proactively, and we could start that process early if we wanted. So, it really service as a whole, a lot of categories of people. So yeah, I wouldn't like to say like, oh, it only takes 3 months. For some people it might only take 3 months. For some people it might take, it depends on how many different identities we have to work through and where they're at, emotionally and mentally and spiritually to tackle that task. Because it, like I said, it can be a heavy task. It takes a little bit of hard work sometimes.
Yes, yeah, okay, completely. Just gave me an idea. So I love that, yeah, people can be, as you say, proactive and come to you because they intend to change identity and be entrepreneurs. So I suppose they could also work with you because they would go, for instance, from being employed somewhere to
Mhm.
starting their business and to becoming a business owner, a founder, or CEO, and then that is in itself as well an identity shift, right?
Yes,
So that they could
absolutely.
also come to you to accompany in the process of going from being employed somewhere to being their boss, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's a huge, huge identity shift.
Yeah,
Because
that's great. I mean,
yeah,
I believe that completely, and I believe we should all be. I've had coaches for nearly as long as I can remember. Started with therapists and then went on to coaches when I became a coach myself and so on. So I so believe in the value of being accompanied on your way to another identity, on your way to something else. So,
yeah,
and I believe there are many different type of coaches, and we've got the business coaches, we've got mindset coaches, and you are again another type of coach because you help. I love it. I love it. Great. Well, I think we know more about you and what you do and what people can call you for. So would you maybe have some tips that you could give to some of us who would like to process an identity shift? Any advice you could give us?
yeah, yeah, absolutely. So I kind of touched on a little bit before, but I'm going to go ahead and put them in chronological order for everyone here. So the most important thing, step number one, is you need to claim and name the identity that you are currently in, or the one that you're going to be going in if you're doing this super proactive. Um, and that gives you power. That gives you the ability to be like, okay, this is what it is. So where do I want to go from here? How do I want it to look? Do I even want this identity? So you can start that process. The important thing is you claim it. The second thing you do is you're going to mourn, process, grieve, lay to rest the old identity, the one that you no longer have. Like I said, that closes the door to bitterness and resentment. And that's what you want to do. You want to set yourself up to be free from your past. You want your past to serve you, not hinder you. And that's what that process does, is it allows your past to serve you. And then thirdly, what you're going to do is you're going to take control of your new identity and you're going to decide what you want it to look like. and you can write a list, or you can just mentally process through it. You can talk to a friend. Hey, guess what? I'm a new mom, and this is the kind of mom I want to be, and then you kind of practically lay out guidelines, protocol, steps for how you want to make that happen. Like I really want to be a present mom with my daughter. And in today's day and age, with all the technology flooding, it can be kind of hard. And so I really strive that when I'm with her, I don't have my phone in my hand, and so that's like a practical step I take to be a really present mom. So those are the 3 steps, kind of simplified, broken down. But that's an easy way to kind of work through it, to step through it. You can kind of ask yourself, you can kind of go through that 3-step checklist and be like, all right, what's my new identity? Have I processed through my old identity and let it go and laid it to rest? And how do I want this new one to look? So,
Yeah. And I love that the end. How do I want that new identity to look on me? How does it fit? And yes, now I love it. And thank you very much for those practical tips, because if I mean we can already, I already have my mind processing. Oh yeah, I could think of this and that, and yeah, it's really great. Yeah, yeah. Thank you so much, Katherine. I really enjoyed our time together, and I'm sorry there was a bit of lag between America and Europe, and I really enjoyed our conversation. And if uh, um, if anybody wants to work with you and contact you, I am going to put your details in the comments of this video on Facebook. And yeah, again, thank you so much for being here today with me, and for sharing a part of your life and sharing your work with us. It was
yeah,
great.
absolutely. And thank you, Madalena, so much for hosting and for putting this all together. It's so wonderful. It's so wonderful to talk to you and to just be so present and share a little bit of my story. I love that. And I love to share the fact that, my story was hard, but now it's beautiful. And that's what I want people to know is there's
Yes,
hard identities, there's ugly identities, but they will change and you'll get beautiful identities at time.
yes, exactly. Beautiful like you. Thanks again, Katherine. And thanks to you for watching. And I wish you a great day. And I'll see you soon for another episode. Thank you.